For many, home in the future will be an adopted home. Titus Gebel. This is Citadelium, Episode 5, and I'm your host, Yuri Degaya. Today, we're finally going to talk about citadels. And here's a side note. I'm going to talk about building a citadel that caters to my tastes and preferences. And as I explained in some of my blog posts, there will be thousands or even tens of thousands of different citadels that cater to different tastes, different cultures, different religions. So the one that I'm going to talk about will most likely be a very subjective overview of what I want to see in a citadel. In a world full of citadels, there can be so many different choices to make for sovereign individuals that this is what I consider true freedom of choice. So, of course, if you're still a communist in that kind of world, there will probably be some attempts at building a communist citadel, and I don't know how it will go, of course. It may be similar to what happened in Seattle a few months ago with the Chaz autonomous zone. So I don't know how it will develop. We'll just have to see. It may as well just implode on itself because obviously communist ideologies are not extremely stable. With the example of Chaz, as you remember, it was a complete chaos. There were stolen belongings, and a funny incident was when someone's belongings were stolen. The guy who came to appease the victim told him, well, relax, someone just needed them more than you do. And that kind of summarizes the ideology to me. Now, there may be, of course, citadels that cater to people who really like to indulge. So-called Vice City citadels, similar to what we have in Las Vegas, Nevada at this time. These citadels can cater to gambling and drug users, so they can have lots of strip clubs. They can have legalized prostitution and stuff like that. If someone wants to go and have a hangover type party for their bachelor, then they can of course go to a Vice City citadel. And my personal preference is citadels that I think will outperform any other types of citadels, is very cultured, low time preference city-states in which there's more attention paid to tradition, to family, to culture, to arts and sciences. So let's talk a little more about that. In some cases, I think before beginning to build real-world physical citadels, there will be attempts at building digital citadels, as I explained in one of my blog posts titled The Way of the Digital Citadel. And what does it mean? Essentially, it means the creation of a so-called digital country in which a group of people, a fairly large group of people, gather based not just on interests like in other forums or internet groups, but based on shared values and shared principles. So this type of congregation will have their own traditions, they will have their own culture, they have their own symbols and symbolism. They may also have their own religion and even their own fashion design, so that they can distinguish themselves in the crowd all over the world. So imagine you belong to one of these digital citadels, and it's a pretty international phenomenon. And then you go to another country and you meet your fellow citadel citizen somewhere by recognizing him in the crowd, or simply by looking at him and seeing what he wears. and what symbolism he uses in his attire. So this is what I'm talking about. It's essentially a distributed country of sorts where a lot of people just get together based on shared values and based on very specific goal that they have, a long-term goal, a goal that may span thousands of years even, not just the next 10 or 20 years. As for me, I would really like to see something like this happen and maybe even organize it myself. So when you have a digital citadel and now you have essentially a digital nation out there that is distributed around the world, then the members or the citizens of this nation can start looking for plots of land in their respective localities and thinking of how to set up their physical citadels in various formats. Sometimes it can be just a small village, it can be a whole city, or it can be just an enclave which is situated within a country where they reside. Some will be as successful as claiming some autonomy and maybe making an agreement with the government so that they can have some economic or even legal autonomy in the region. We will see what will happen because there will be different attempts and different people will start working on this issue, and it will be a true competition in my mind, and competition, as we know, brings results to the market faster than centralized planning. So what would my ideal citadel look like? I think in my opinion it has to be something small, something very manageable. It should resemble a village probably, because if you remember, there is this concept of the Dunbar number, which is limited to 150 people. This is a number of people that you can meaningfully have relationships with and that you don't forget. Anything over that number already gets lost in your mind, so you stop remembering people's names, you stop remembering who they are. So obviously that's why a large city, for example, New York or Vancouver, is just a city of lots of anonymous people. Nobody knows each other. Whereas if you go to any village, you can see a completely different vibe there. Everybody knows each other. You know your corner store guy, you know your butcher, you know your baker, you know your doctor. This is what we aim for, because we want to create tight communities. We want to create communities that have very strong personal relationships with each other. And I think based on this Dunbar number, you can create a very little village of 150 people if you really want to tighten it up and have a very small community, even if it's based purely on your family, if most of people are just your family. But having a village that has, let's say, 10 times the Dunbar number, for example, 1,500 people, is already a very good option. This kind of provides you a little more diversity, it makes it more lively, and you will have more people, more random people to talk about, but it's not going to be as overwhelming as a large city. Another thing that I want to see in a citadel is a public square. Remember that the citadel that I want to build has to foment a very strong community. So a public square is a place where people can get together, they can spend time with. It can have a little park, but also very importantly, in the middle of the square, there has to be some kind of a place where people gather to connect spiritually. So usually it is a church, and of course, depending on your country, depending where you come from, and depending on your religion, it can be an Orthodox Christian church, it can be a Catholic church, or a mosque, or something else out there. So you have to choose, but as long as there is such a place, and where this will allow for creation of a stronger community because people will regularly meet there and talk to each other and talk also to their spiritual leaders. Now, I don't think you have to be extremely religious to actually do that. As long as there's just a place where people can gather, I think it's a great way to strengthen the community. Remember that for the majority of people, and in especially nation states, religion is a glue that keeps common people united. It keeps the spirit of the nation. It keeps people. It has this kind of ability to keep people on the same page, essentially. One other feature that I want to see in my village, in the Citadel, is that it is extremely walkable. What do I mean by walkable? Is that there are no interruptions on the roads and you can have a walk very calmly from one point to another point in the village without being disturbed by cars. So I do want to have a carless village. So how do people get around it? Well, first of all, of course, resident cars and cars that belong to guests can be allowed. However, residents can be storing their cars in their houses, and there can be certain pathways to those garages. However, the guest cars can be stored, can be parked outside in a designated area. Now, if the village area is large and spread out, of course, you can build a system of small tramways or some more modern monorail trains that will take people who don't like walking too much, or elderly people or people with some disabilities very quickly from one point to another. It can also attract some tourism to the village and be the village's sightseeing point. And you must remember that in a carless village, the air will be much cleaner and there will be a lot less noise there. Of course, a lot of the cars will be electric very soon, so this doesn't remove, however, the issue of the hazard on the road. If I want to create a place where it's very safe for families and safe for elderly people to walk, then I just don't want to see any cars there. One of the features of citadels in general is defense and protection. And of course, we require some physical borders that surround the citadel and protect it from the outside world. So these kind of borders can be natural, such as forests or bushes, or if you're on an island, then obviously there can be some water or a cliff. So, and you can also build artificial borders with walls and fences. The exits to the citadel have to be, of course, controlled and guarded. So this can be achieved with current technology in a seamless and automated way, but I do think there has to be at least one individual, one physical guard there just to add some human element to the defense of the citadel. Furthermore, the citadel can have a contract with a private security company. So if in case the guard on duty sees something unusual or there's an actual invasion, then we can quickly call the private security contractor that we have on contract with us, and they will send some reinforcements and help us resolve the situation. As for peacekeeping within the community itself, I really don't see the need for any kind of police there, because it is a small village and it is widely known that in small villages like this, there is almost no crime, and if any kind of crime happens, pretty much everybody knows right away who the perpetrator was. So, but if you don't want to have extra security measures, you can definitely have some guards on duty, or even community organized guards who just change shifts and walk around the community and see that there is order on the streets. What are the ways that you can build such a community? You can first of all build it as a purely residential area, a neighborhood in which your residents only come to spend time with their families, to sleep and to eat, and then they can go work outside somewhere in the city, maybe in a larger city. Or you can attract more business to the village and actually run it as a business by itself, because you can generate revenue for the village to make sure that you have resources to maybe expand, grow a little bit, or even just upgrade the systems that you have in the village. I would actually do it in a mixed way. First of all, I would segregate the residential area from the rest of the village by way of a secondary gate. So this way, first of all, you have additional protection, additional safety measures, and secondly, you are segregated from a little more noisy parts of the village. So then you have the common area, which is where people spend some time, some leisure time. They can go have some coffee in a coffee shop. There will be some restaurants, there will be some museums, and there can be some attractions. People will be able to build their businesses there, and we can also build some sightseeing objects that will attract tourists. We can also build something that is lacking in the surrounding areas. For example, if you are next to a larger city and something lacks there, you can build it in your village to attract city dwellers to come to your village and spend money in it. As for the government structure of the Citadel, then it is definitely going to be a private village. A private village meaning that it will be built on private money held in a bank account of the holding company, of the construction company that builds the Citadel. So if I own the holding company and I'm the chairman of the company, essentially that makes me the monarch or a king, even though I don't have that title. I can put that title on myself just for fun, or just because I want to take it seriously, or I can just leave it be and be a chairman, the CEO, or even the elder of the Citadel. Whatever suits your needs, you can do it. As the Citadel is run by a private company, and most likely the first Citadels will be located within the existing nation states, as you can imagine, most likely it will have to pay taxes to the state. That's why I think it is necessary in the beginning to start generating revenue as a business. And that's why I think the mixed model is important, because you have to attract some money into the Citadel. You have to generate some income from not just your citizens, but also from tourists and people who come from larger cities to visit your place. So this is the way I see some of the early Citadels play out and appear in the near future. However, of course, our bigger goal and bigger ideas is to build larger citadels, whole city-states with thousands, tens of thousands, and even millions of people. And that can be done, and that will be done. But we have to be realistic that we have to start somewhere. The Citadel that I just described to you is more of a residential community, more of a gated community that I want to live in, that I want to see. Because personally, I am tired of large cities. I don't want to live with millions of people. I want to live in a tight, strong community where self-respect is paramount, where respect for your community members is paramount, where there's culture, where there's tradition, and respect for family relationships. However, as time goes, of course, we will be making attempts to build other citadels that look more like today's Hong Kongs or Singapores or even Liechtensteins. And there is no reason why you cannot have two citadels if you're a successful company, if you're a successful private construction firm or holding company and you have enough money in your coffers, or if you're able to invent a concept and actually attract investors to that concept, you can build multiple citadels. As a matter of fact, I think some of us will have multiple citadels. And then you'll be able to travel between these citadels. You can use one citadel to live in, to use it as your residential area, while the other one can be your business hub. For example, you can build a port citadel that allows for global trade to happen there, or you can have a citadel that focuses on information technology or on excavation of resources. It can be all kinds of niches that you can fill there. And I think competition again plays a huge role here, and we will see that appear in the next 5-10 years. This is it with this short overview of the Citadel that I want to build. And if you want to learn a little more on the basics of these concepts, I advise you to go to my blog at thegaia.co and read the Citadelium section of the website. There is quite a few articles already there on Citadels, starting from the very basics, and I will keep it updated. I keep writing. Even though I started this show, I will still keep writing because some material I think is better suited for the written word. I hope this episode gave you a clearer idea of what citadels of the future will look like, especially the very first ones that we will build in the next several years. If you like the show, please subscribe at whichever platform you use, or simply put your email in the subscription form at thegaia.co not to miss any episodes that are coming up. For now, until next time.